This is Craig Migliaccio from acservicetech, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to Ty Braneman. And a lot of people already know him from his HVAC training channel, Ty Braneman.
That's a really original name, wasn't it?
That's right. And so today what we're going over is the top tips for new instructors. So new HVAC instructors, maybe you want to start a training program within your organization. And so we want to give you some tips. I love interacting with new teachers, and I want to see what you would say, because Ty is he's a very big inspiration to me and in HVAC teaching, and I get a lot out of his videos, so make sure you check him out. But I want to hear, what do you have to say for new instructors?
Oh man, I tell you, I love instructing, I love teaching, and when I first started teaching, I was really not qualified. But the thing I've learned that makes a good instructor is really two things. Number one, do you care? And number two, are you continuously learning? And if you have those two things, you're going to be a good instructor, because I don't know it all. I'm here learning right now new stuff. I have colleagues, I have people in the field that I'm still learning from constantly. So as you're learning, you realize, wow, I used to do that wrong, or I never understood that. Or somebody asks you a question and you don't know the answer, now you're going to have to go learn. Say, hey, come back to me tomorrow, and you go learn. And as long as you're continuously learning and you care, everything else can be solved.
And a lot of times you may feel like a failure, you may feel underqualified or any of that type of stuff. And guess what? It all comes down to what Ty was saying. It feels like overwhelming to you, but the reality is, when it feels that way, that means you care. And if you care, you're going to find the right answer. So if you care about that student, you care about a younger technician that's in your company, you're going to find them the right answer. And it's okay to tell them, I don't have that answer, I'm going to get back to you, and to reach out to other people. We're both here at the HVACR Training Symposium at HVAC School in Claremont, Florida. We're learning, okay? We're getting to interact with other instructors, and it is a huge privilege. So don't give up on yourself, and invest in yourself, and just learn. So any other tips for new instructors?
Oh, goodness gracious, we got a lot of tips. So one of the things is making sure you keep your ego at home, and that's difficult because in the field, tradesmen, we typically we have the ego, and that's good. We have to be able to keep that at check. Some other things we got to do is make sure that we keep sports, religion, and politics out of the classroom. You can have all of your opinions all day long, but you have to really struggle to keep those separate, and keep it separate from your students, because that can really turn a class south extremely fast. And some people say, even sports? Yes, definitely even sports. I've had students that almost got into a fist fight in class because of a sports team. So keep those things out of the class. Another thing is, make sure you're being reinforcive. So when you're talking about stuff and somebody gets it, a high five, hey, good job. That right there goes a long ways. I don't give out stuff when I teach. Some instructors give stuff out. For me, I give out high fives, I give out compliments, I give out smiles, I give out good jobs. Compliments go a long ways. Hey, you learned something good. This, a little bit of good job, stuff like that goes a long ways for everybody. Say something nice to somebody, see somebody smile, that same thing in the classroom. Another thing I try to do is I try to avoid telling people that they're wrong. If somebody answers, I love it when people are participating. When somebody answers a question, that's great. I've been in class, be like, hey, does anybody have any questions? And it's like, chirp, chirp. So if I ask a question and somebody answers, I say, hey, I love that you answered. I love that you're thinking about it. That's not what I'm looking for. Things like that, I kind of turn it to, I love your thinking. And that's true. I love that they're thinking. I love they're thinking about it, because that's what we want to train them, not to memorize the stuff, but to be thinking. So little things like, hey, I love that you're thinking. That's not what we're looking for. And then when somebody gets the answer right, yes, that's exactly right. And then I go back and we'll cover that. And the little thing is, try to lead them to, don't tell the information, lead them into it. So you kind of lead them into, I want the class to figure this out on their own. I'm going to lead them into figuring that out. And then we're here to add the human aspect. Everything that we're teaching is already there. It's already in books, it's already in pamphlets, it's already in information. But it's the human aspect. Having somebody they can trust, somebody they can talk to, and they're going to be trusting you. You're going to be the person they're looking up to. So having that human connection, that's what's so important. So being able to lead them to be able to solve these problems, lead them to finding those answers. And they're going to be looking up to you for really the rest of their life. I've had my very first class, those people contact me and say, hey, thank you for doing this, thank you for doing that. And that is what pays for me. Instructing, we don't do this for the money. I don't think you even could do it for the money, because you wouldn't make a living on it. We do it for that feedback and helping people. And there's so many things like that goes on, but really the human aspect is more important than all the technical stuff we do. Being able to build that person up.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you were going to start teaching, what you want to teach about is the things that you know, the things that you're passionate about. There's nothing worse than trying to put an instructor that's passionate about a certain subject matter in a box, because it's not going to go over real well to the students. And so don't think that you don't know enough. You definitely know enough to teach somebody. And just go back and make sure that you're saying and doing the right things for them. That's all, because you care, and that's going to happen. As far as building out your program, if you don't have equipment, you can reach out to companies in the area and they can give you the equipment. It's really best for those students to get their hands on equipment, and then you can teach the theory, because now they're questioning, well, why does it work this way? Why is that happening? But if you hit them with the book first, they don't care as much. So you can have the best material in the world, but they don't retain it. And so you have to develop the questions first, and they're there to learn from you, because if you're in a school, they're there because they want the hands-on. They want to learn. And Ty said it great with they want to feel accepted. They want to be able to have that good feeling about themselves, that they're doing a good job. And a lot of times you got to realize that a lot of families, that may not be happening at home. And so they're looking to you, for that. And so if you don't let them know that you care before you try to teach and pound all of this information and all these skills into them, they're not going to retain it. But if you come at it from a point of caring, then that's when they're going to retain it. Any other tips?
Well, you had a really important subject, and talking about the book and bringing the human aspect, but also the curiosity. Yeah. Building that curiosity is one of the most powerful learning tools. So if you're drawing a compressor and they're like, well, yeah, but what does it look like? That's a great question. Stop right there and go pull one apart, cut one open, or say, hey, let's come back tomorrow and let's find out what that is. Curiosity is a powerful, powerful learning tool. And you don't have to answer all the questions right now. Say, hey, I love that question. Write that question down, and by the end of the week, we're going to answer that question. We are on the path to answering that. So you don't have to answer those right now. Just like movies, you'll have that cliffhanger. Oh, hey, we're about to, and you got to watch the next episode. So those cliffhangers and that curiosity, those questions are great to apply into that. So, what we're drawing on the board, the curiosity, seeing the hands-on, taking stuff apart. Hey, what does that look like? Hey, it's a great question. Let's cut one open and go see. And that's really powerful. Just simple stuff that we take for granted. Simple stuff that, hey, we've seen 1,000 evaporators. A student may have only seen one, or maybe never seen one at all. So sure, let's go look at some. Pulling them out, letting them touch it, look at it, and turn it around and see it. Really powerful.
So what would you say to a teacher that kind of comes into a position and feels like they don't have physical resources or educational resources? What should they do to get started?
There is a wealth of resources all around us. Like you said, it was great to go to AC Contractors. I used to go to the local contractors, and they had a scrap pile out there, and I would sometimes bring a few students, and we'd go and just pull a bunch of parts out, drag junk back to the school, and we'd just take it apart. I learned a lot by scrapping units out. So we'll bring junk back and we'll cut stuff open. It's a great resource, but also online, there's massive amounts of resources out here. And YouTube, we don't like to use too many YouTube videos in the classroom, but those, you can take segments and pieces of that and show exactly what it is for the class. And then if they say, hey, you want to see the rest of that? Then you can lead them to the rest of whatever video it is. But the resources, I believe, are there. I know some manufacturers do provide stuff, but they do get overwhelmed because every school in the country wants something for free. So a lot of times you have to start with something. Hey, I've found this. We drug this old junk back in. And then now that they're seeing, hey, you're working with this, there's also grants. There's a lot of other things to do. But you got to start somewhere. You got to show that you're working with it as well. My whole labs are built by just really junk, stuff people throw away.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. If you don't have money in your organization, there's a lot of contractors in the area that care. I guarantee you there's people in the area that care. And if you care and they see that from you, then they're going to help you. They'll drop units off. If they're taking out a functioning system, they might even bring that over, or you can go to them and pick that stuff up. Instead of them cutting it all apart to reduce the weight, they're going to take the care to kind of get that system out in order for you to be able to teach on it. And that's awesome. That's huge. And guess what? There's an added bonus to that. You have an evolution of gas furnaces over 60, 80 years. And so your students get to see all these various types of components and everything. And that's awesome right there. Same thing with air conditioners. And heat pumps and all kinds of stuff. So if you do have, monetary resources, maybe don't buy the same units, like, 5 or 6 of the same units of 80% efficient furnaces, 90% efficient furnaces, or something like that. Make sure you get a varied approach. And because what's going to happen is you're going to see students that are excelling, and you can put them on various tasks, and you're always teaching everybody at different levels, but making sure that everybody feels valued. And you're teaching the same content, but you're challenging those that really maybe are excelling, and you want that push. You want to push them, and guess what? That's what's going to push you to be a better teacher, because you're not going to have the answers. You're going to have to go somewheres. Okay, what about educational resources maybe that they can use in the classroom? You mentioned that we shouldn't really be using that many videos. Maybe you might use a 5-minute introduction video to a subject or something like that, something that you may not have in the classroom. But what about other, say, educational resources would you recommend for just somebody starting out?
Simple is usually better. So I like to have, even before I would give my students books at the big schools, the book overwhelms a student. So I would take pieces of those books, make copies of them, check with your copyright laws on that. But I take pieces and just give the students the pieces of information so they can start digesting this easier. That's what I love about your book, is because it's easy to digest and it's interactive with that, so it doesn't overwhelm somebody. The big books are great, but you bring that to somebody who maybe is afraid of school and it's just very overwhelming. So breaking that down into digestible or manageable amounts of information. Don't overwhelm them with everything, being able to break those resources down. And resources are just quite abundant now. They even have virtual reality resources that you can put the headsets on, and it's, for some people that can be overwhelming as well, but all of these different things are out there. There's also computer programs that get you with wiring to help you understand different types of wiring. I can think of about 8 different computer programs that are available now. So you've got to find out what's going to fit with your budget, but the resources are quite abundant. The best resource is going to be you leading them.
Yes. So once you get past that first year or second year, whether you know it or not, you're going to be the one building educational resources, because it's going to come out of your passion, it's going to come out of your heart, and it's going to be built based on the interaction you have with the students or your helper in the field or whatever. If you're riding in a service truck, you are a teacher. If you are teaching that helper in the truck or an installation truck, please do not think that you are not teaching that individual. You are definitely teaching that individual. And you can call yourself a teacher. I had somebody say that to me. I'm like, oh yeah, I like teaching too. And she was a teacher and had 25 students in the classroom. It wasn't HVAC. And she's like, what do you mean? You're not a teacher. You do heating and cooling. And I'm like, no, I don't care if it's one person, 2 people or whatever. Right. I love teaching. And so you can't keep somebody like that down. They're gonna go after, and they're going to be able to give somebody that's hungry to learn the skills and knowledge that they're going to be able to support their families or their future families with. And guess what? Nobody can take the knowledge that you're giving to them from them. So,
Craig, do you know what the most difficult year of teaching is?
What?
The one that you're in. And while we laugh about that, it really is true, because here's this equipment behind us. We can find out what's wrong with this equipment and we can fix it. We can do things to make this equipment better, and it's a standard and we can continue to apply that. But with people, we can come up with this set of teaching that works great for maybe 6 or 7 classes. And then we have this next class, and now the one student's like, I don't get that at all. Maybe the whole class is like, I don't understand it that way. And now what's worked 1,000 times, you got to think of a whole entirely new way of explaining it. So what I love about the teaching side of it is that you can't just figure out a solve. You're always having to think of, how can I get to this person? And you're going to have a student that's going to really frustrate you. And they're not most of the time intentionally doing it. A lot of them just, hey, they want to understand it and they don't know how to get there. And it's going to really drive, it's going to push you to think, how can I get this student to understand this? I've had sleepless nights of, how can I get this to this person? How can I get them to understand this? And then when you get them to understand it, and they're like, and you can see it, they don't have to tell you, you can see it in their eyes, they're like, I get that now. Or even if they verbally say, it's even better. And now you realize that they're getting it. Oh man, it's an amazing feeling. There's nothing else. I've jumped out of airplanes and done skydiving. Nothing compares to when that student finally gets it and you're able to help them understand something. It's incredible. And I love HVAC. And the hardest year of teaching is the one you're in, because there's never a full solve. You're always learning something new, and it's always making me learn more.
Yeah. The most joy that I find in my life is by investing in other people. And that's it. Like that's what gets me excited. It gets me my blood pumping. It gets me going, and that's what it's all about. And if you are a student, and somebody's made an impact in your life, or you are a helper at some point, make sure that you're letting that person that taught you know the difference that has made in your life. Because that's an encouragement for that individual to keep doing what they're doing. They're doing a good job because they cared about you. And then you need to pass that on to the next person. It's very important that you are passing on any knowledge that you have to the next generation. We need all the knowledgeable, caring technicians and teachers that we can possibly get. And is there anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap this?
I would love to say a few more things. We could talk all day long about this. But with every single class that you teach, there's going to be somebody saying you're going too fast. There's going to be somebody saying, hey, you're just right. There's going to be somebody saying you're going too slow. So you will never be perfect for all the classes. Now you're also going to have students that, and if you are a student, you may have an instructor at some point. You're like, I do not like this instructor, or I don't think positive instructor. Maybe the instructor's not teaching. Maybe they don't care, and maybe they aren't actively learning. It's not overall the instructor's job to make you learn. The only person that's responsible for their learning is the person themselves. I have learning disabilities, learning disorders. Is that a thing? That's learning, for sure, an issue. But I've learned to use those things to overcome them. So if somebody's not teaching me something, hey, then I'm going to use that motivation to go find it on my own. And I've had before other students with other instructors that didn't meet what I feel is a level of benchmark. But what they've done is they go out and find stuff, and those other students start teaching their classmates. So even if you're in school right now, you can be a teacher. You can be helping your classmates understand something. Forcing yourself, I don't like to read, but I've learned that some of the answers I have to read, now that I've learned how to read and search for little pieces of information, I learn this much information. And now I'm reading more and more. I sometimes have to read something 12 times before it finally clicks. But the information's there and learning. So as much as we want to, as instructors, help people learn and help people understand, it ultimately isn't the instructor's job to make sure you're learning. We want to help facilitate that learning. We want to help transmit that information. But ultimately, learning comes down to each person's individual drive, the grit.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a good student that is, and everybody is a good student because they're always trying, but I'm saying somebody that you're constantly having to challenge, meaning like giving them more and more and more tasks, make sure that you're not, make sure you are challenging them. Make sure that you're giving them more and more things. I've had students ask me questions I did not know the answer to, and I'm like, oh man, I got to step up my game. And so what happens is, though, you get to a certain point and you're like, you need to teach them. It's not important to ignore everybody else and go fly past. That's not good. They need to be helping other people. And they don't have to say that, but they need to be able to learn to care like a teacher. Because guess what? If they're picking up all these skills and stuff like that and have no social skills, they pick up the hard skills of the troubleshooting and the knowledge and all this stuff, but they can't communicate well, that's a downfall to them, and it's a downfall to the people around them. So they need to step up and help other people. So.
And he gets it. We've had so many conversations about stuff, and it's just so great to have people like Craig here that care. And I wish I would have had this information when I first started teaching, because I was thrown into a classroom, hey, here's a book that I've never seen before, and here's your class, and they walked out, and I was left to a class. So if I can do this with my learning disabilities, with not liking to read, with barely making it through high school, being able to teach at community colleges and be able to teach HVAC, if I can do this, anybody can do this. Care and keep learning.
Absolutely.
Every instructor is going to feel like they're overwhelmed, but try to find other instructors, people that you can talk to, people that you can mentor with. I know for me, Craig's a great mentor, be able to talk to him. If I'm having a rough day, I can call Craig up and be like, hey, I'm out of ideas, I need some help, I'm just frustrated. And just having somebody that doesn't have to tell me what to do, sometimes it's great to have that too, but just say, hey, just somebody to listen and understand, and then be able to give back to other people. Somebody's going to be frustrated, and being able to have somebody to lean on or be the person that they're leaning on, that helps a lot. So just being able to have that community, the instructor community, the HVAC community is a big thing. And also to make sure that you're also talking with the people in the industry. Who's going to be hiring your students? Talk with them to make sure you're aligned with their needs. For example, if you're up north, they're having more heating stuff, you want to focus on that at the right time. Maybe if you're in Miami learning about oil furnaces, maybe isn't going to be as important. So find out what the struggles are of your local community so that you're meeting those needs, but also you still want to be looking at that bigger picture. Talk about blower door testing. Think of the whole house system All of these things are a big part of it. But first, do what you know, focus on what you know, and then also as you're learning and getting inspired about bigger picture stuff, you can also transmit that to your students. But as you're excited about this, your students are also excited about this. They can feel that energy. They can feel it if you're having a bad day or not getting it. So what I found is bad days are going to happen. I would tell my class, hey, everybody is human. And if anybody's having a bad day, come talk to me before class or at a break and say, Mr. Ty, I'm having a bad day. Could you just give me some slack? And I'll make sure I don't call on that student at all. We don't know everything that's going on in students' lives. And once you get teaching, you'll realize the lives that these students go through is absolutely amazing. And I'll give that student some slack. But also I'll tell my students, I'm having a bad day today, guys. So if you would cut me a little bit of slack, we're going to go through this, and I want to make sure you guys have the best learning day. But I'm just not on my point. And then I'll change it. Or if I feel like a subject's getting boring or not going well, or I start getting sleepy myself, hey, let's run to the lab. Let's go do something else. Keeping it mixed up. Don't feel like you have to be on a set structure. Get up and go do something else. Talk about something else. Do a different subject. I've even taken my class before that was falling asleep in the morning. We walked around the building as I was doing a lecture talking about stuff as everybody's keeping up. And then as we're doing stuff, there's all this going around. Then the class starts waking up. And I've even had students before where we ran. Like, we're walking too slow. Great, let's run. So we're running around the building talking about air conditioning. I'm not recommending you do that. But if you think outside the box, what can I do? It doesn't have to be structured. And sometimes at schools, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. So just thinking outside the box, doing things, making sure it's safe, but thinking about, hey, what can I do to make this interesting? What can I do to make this different?
So what you want to think about is, as a teacher, you want to deliver building blocks to your students. So you don't have to cover a whole thing. So like the whole operation of all these gas furnaces or whatever it may be, show them a component. First, show them the gas furnace and show it operating, and then break it down a little bit more. But then you got to realize that all of these things, air conditioners, furnaces, heat pumps, they look overwhelming. And so you end up having to break it down to individual components. You have to break it down even further. What does that component do? And Ty does a fantastic job of this. He kind of puts on a magic show, and he takes like real world applications like a toaster and uses that in order to explain electric strip heating. And there's that application process where you can take your real world things and teach about HVAC using those. And that gets the interest of the student. So whether you're strictly on the equipment or you're using some type of a real world application and comparing it to the HVAC system, just realize, don't put yourself in a box. I have to do this, I have to do that next, this next. You're going to feel what's going to be productive for your class and what's not productive. And so you're going to have to change on the fly. If you find that you're boring people, it's time to get back in the back of the shop, And once again, these students are in your class because they learn via hands-on. They want to get their hands on it. And it's not going to make a hill of beans to them at all, what you're trying to teach them, until they see a problem or they want to get better at whatever task that they're doing. And I also want to point out that one thing that's missed, and this is a huge important part, if you're teaching high school students or even adults, a lot of people did not grow up in homes with tools, but yet they're in your class because they find it interesting. They did not have the opportunity to learn how to nail a literal nail in, and you can't reject that person because they don't know how to nail a nail in, hammer a nail in. And it's like some simple things of where this point is, where your elbow is in relation to where the nail is. Oh, it has to be up here. Now I don't bend over the nails every time. Don't be afraid to teach basics. Basics are building blocks to the next level, and then all of a sudden you've built into somebody and they're awesome. So, any tips?
That is really so true. I had a student have an adjustable wrench, and where you hang it in the wall, they were using that to try to loosen a set screw. Some people just don't have the mechanical aptitude. And then at first you're thinking, is that funny or is that real? And it's definitely real. But once these people start learning how to do it and they're realizing, hey, I can do this stuff, it's really powerful. So people ask me, how do you deal with that student? I work with them as much as the first time it happened, I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. But then I realized they've never actually touched it before. So sometimes you have to step back a little bit further than you typically would. Don't assume that somebody knows something, because nobody wants to feel embarrassed. If you assume somebody knows something, it can make them feel embarrassed, and then they're not actually moving forward with stuff. But also you talked about, the toaster. There's all kinds of stuff around us. Anything that's being thrown around, electrical, old washing machines, vacuum cleaners, hair dryers, all this stuff is electrical, and there's so much HVAC components in it. So just getting junk and taking it apart in the classroom, now they're invested, they're doing the hands-on, they're going to ask you questions. Hey, what is this? And I'll tell them, we took a hair dryer apart. They said, what is this? Like, oh, I don't know. Let's look it up and find out. So they'd find numbers. Oh, that's a fuse. So being able to show them how to research and look up stuff. There's all kinds of tools you can have with resources to help with that. Just junk thrown away. Or go to the Goodwill and buy a $2 hair dryer. It's all that stuff's fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So one thing with even the basic skills is I will do a competition in the classroom, and who can do something the fastest, once they start doing these standard skills. And it may even be stripping thermostat wires and wiring in a thermostat. You might have a sub base and thermostat wire, and who can do that the fastest and who's accurate, And so it could be that, it could be using a drill, and guess what? I've actually had a conversation with somebody here at the HVACR symposium where they said that they were teaching somebody, and this person had a great strategy mind, but they didn't have any tool, like any knowledge of tools. So you do not, make sure you don't reject that person. You have to teach them how to use the tools, because they might blow past somebody that knows how to use the tools because of the strategy and how they can think about problem solving. This is very important. Somebody that can problem solve or that's interested, guess what? If you give them the tool knowledge, how to use a cordless drill and how to do all that type of stuff, they're going to think more and more and more highly of themselves and their abilities. I've just learned this. I'm capable of this now. And guess what? They don't get that maybe in their relationship, or maybe it's a marriage or something like that, or maybe it's at their home, wherever, if you're growing up, it's a young kid, maybe it's a boss that's talked down to them for a period of time. Once you give somebody that confidence, that is a huge, huge thing. And you have to beat back all of those types of things to make a service tech, somebody that can walk up to a system and not get overwhelmed. And they have confidence that they know how that component works, and then they can start putting the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah, we're mentors too, and the people look up to you. And even if you're not talking about typical life stuff, they're looking up to you. Sometimes school's the only thing these people have that's really keeping their life together. It's the only thing that they can hold on to. It's the only constant. Makes a big difference. I can tell you heartbreaking stories of what's happened in some of these people's lives, and how just having a place to go to and somebody they can talk to makes a huge difference. It's amazing what you can do. So the people looking up to you, not just of what you're teaching technical stuff, but how you're acting and how you're supporting and helping. These things it's what really changes somebody's life. I taught one student just how to simply look somebody in the eye. The student was like this all the time, so we started working with them about looking somebody in the eye when they talk to them. Getting a good firm handshake. You'd be surprised when people don't know how to do a handshake. There's steps involved. These things are just as important as all the technical stuff. So it's very important. And we could go on for forever talking about all these things to do. A lot of the stuff you're just going to learn as you go. And what's great is there's a whole bunch of us instructors out here who love this, and we've all ran into these problems before. So start building a community and start getting some contacts in, and people will be able to help and work through this. Yeah. There's somebody that's going through the same problem you're having right now.
Right now. And so just realize that you could teach somebody all the technical skills in the world and all this troubleshooting and multimeters and doing all this diagnosis and refrigerant charging, but if they cannot use basic tools, sheet metal snips, whatever it's in your area, whether it's running gas lines, using pipe wrenches and things like that, the employer that's going to end up hiring them is going to maybe look down at them and not give them a chance because they didn't learn the basic skills. So while you're teaching and focusing on all this high-level stuff and you're kicking yourself because you don't know enough, but yet you do know all those basic skills and how to do that, and give them that. Give them that. And have them soldering pipes and brazing, and maybe a competition on who can braze something the best, or who can fix the largest hole. And you explain, okay, well, we're not going to fix that in the field like that, like this big hole, and leave it like that. But you're getting some skills down, and people are competitive, and you can joke around during that time. You don't want it to be a negative thing. You lost, this or that. But you want to be able to give them those basic skills across the board. Whatever basic skills you value and you think are important. And don't let anybody else tell you that, especially if it's somebody that's saying, hey, you're teaching the subject, I want you to teach this. Well, you came from the field, you know what's best here, you know. So if you really truly believe it, and also especially if you see it in your students, then that's what you need to follow through with. And so I just wanted this to be an encouragement. And I'm sure that you already know Ty, you know, from his YouTube channel. He's a huge encouragement to me. I just put up in the community post. I don't know when you guys are going to see this, but I put up in the community post about him, and I was just watching some of the videos he did, and I'm just like, man, just such an encouragement. I had a bad day, and I just was watching him, you know, and it was a huge encouragement. And he, you know, he'll deny it, he'll shake his head, oh no, you know, I'm not like that, you know, but he is an encourager and a teacher, you know, and so, you know, he's great. So
Craig's an encouragement to me, but this is community. Like he'll call me at just the right time, and it's amazing how it works. You were talking about brazing, and I just have to add this in there. You know what my favorite thing is about brazing class? The students that come in and have fire, and there's these tanks, and what pressure to set, how do they open the valves? All this is new to them. Which way a student opens a valve, sometimes which way do I turn to open it? Things that we take for granted, and they're all scared at first. They light the torch and they're scared, and they're all nervous about everything, but at the end of that class, they're all brazen. They're brazen.
Yeah. Oh, it's okay to have teacher jokes and dad jokes and all these things. So, I love the guy. So make sure to check out his videos. He's got full-length videos, and guess what? A lot of them are in sequence. So he does them step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 in a whole subject matter. So you can watch them right in a row. It's fantastic. So make sure you check him out at Ty Brannaman. So that's youtube.com/Ty Brannaman. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and we'll see you next time at AC Service Tech channel.